and that's the last thing I remember. And I woke up in the hospital several hours later, and my introduction to paralysis was my mother's hand was on my hand, but I couldn't squeeze her hand. And so I wake up, have that moment, doctor comes in and says, hey, I need to talk to you about paralysis. You're paralyzed from your neck down.
Wow.
And that was obviously devastating. Doctor comes in and says, hey, I need to talk to you about paralysis. You're paralyzed from your neck down.
Wow.
And that was obviously devastating. And you're like, what do I do? I was 19 years old at the time. I was going to
say you're like 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah. I'm a July baby. So when I graduated from high school, I turned 19 that summer. So I just turned 19, and you're like, okay, well, I'm playing junior hockey. I have 4 letters of interest from top schools to play Division I hockey, full scholarship, all this stuff, and now I'm in a hospital bed and I can't move. What do I do? So to say the next couple of weeks were tough would be an understatement, but I went from the hospital that I was at in Boston to Spalding Rehab and really didn't make much progress. My injuries were at the cervical level of my neck, so high up, and I remember about 6 weeks after my accident in September, Mom, Dad, and I go to, at the time, some of the most well-respected doctors in the world in Boston, sit in their office, and they come in with a pamphlet, and they said, Tom, unfortunately, your injury is really bad. The reality for you is going to be life in a wheelchair. And at that point, I was walking with assisted devices, like I could stand up with a walker, I would use a wheelchair and things like that. And I see a little boy, and he's going by in a wheelchair, and he's controlling it by his tongue. And I had seen stuff like that when I was in Miami, but obviously I'm very susceptible emotionally. I'm like, what is going on here? How is this 7 or 8-year-old, 9-year-old paralyzed? And I don't know what I was going to say if I caught up to this child, but I transferred from my hospital bed to my wheelchair. I go out in the hallway, round the corner, and I see his father picking up his arms to hug his mother. And I went back in my room and I lost it. I cried like a baby for almost 2 hours, and I said, Thomas Smith, you are so selfish. Why you? Why not you? It was your choice to go back to hockey. It was your choice to try to live your dream. It was your choice to try to obtain a collegiate scholarship. Why not you? And when I started to look at the why me versus why not me, it changed my whole perspective in life and really how I approach life today, but how I approach life since October. Next day, it was actually funny, the next day I'm on the front page of the Miami Herald next to the Pope. And my grandmother sees the article, and she calls me, Grandma was super religious, and she's like, honey, out of my 8 grandchildren, you were the last person I thought I'd see on the front page of a major publication next to the
awesome.
Pope.
And welcome to the Apex Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Bob G. DMD, and I'm here as always with my co-host,
Dennis V. How are you, Bob?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Just got off vacation. I came back from warm shores of Bermuda.
I think about the warm weather back because we're looking at a stretch in early September where it's going to be in the 80s all week. So
unbelievable.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and then we have a road trip coming up soon where we're going to be in the oven.
Yeah, we're going to be in the oven in Vegas. We're going out to see Wu-Tang in Vegas. It's going to be our guest and friend of the show, Capadonna. We're going out to visit him at a great show in I believe it's the Virgin Hotel in Vegas, so we're excited.
Yeah, the first hip-hop act in history to have a Vegas residency, so that's going to be really cool. So
a lot of fun.
We're going to have some fun there, and we'll have a great time. But, in the meantime, we have an incredible guest here today.
When you're talking resilience, when you're talking perseverance, it's the man sitting to my left. This guy is unbelievable.
He's incredible. We have the distinct honor of welcoming Thomas E. Smith to the show. He's got a compelling story that we're going to share with you guys today, and talk about we talk about a lot of times people reaching their apex and hitting it, what it takes to get there, and you were almost there a couple of times and had some major setbacks, and I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with that a little bit. I'd like to dig in, and welcome to the show, Thomas Smith.
Bob, thanks so much for having us. Dennis, thank you, and excited to dive in with you guys.
Yeah,
honors ours. Great to have you, man.
No, it's my pleasure. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you hail from Marblehead?
Yes. Yep.
In Massachusetts. It's a beautiful area, actually, right on the water, right?
Yeah, actually, so I grew up next door in Swampscott. My wife and I moved to Marblehead a couple of years ago, so we love it. Summers are great. Winters are what they are. but being a hockey player growing up, we loved our winters. So.
Of course, right? Yeah. So that's basically leading up to this, right? So you're a hockey player.
Yep.
Right, and you happen to have a significant injury. And I guess it was back in 2008, August 2nd.
Yeah. So
lead us down the path. Give us a little bit of time before August 2nd, 2008 too. Like tell us the lead up, and then tell us about what happened.
Yeah. So growing up, my identity was a hockey player. I grew up, like I said, in Swampscott, born and raised in just a loving family. It's kind of like a Norman Rockwell scene, right? Two loving parents, older brother who I looked up to and always tried to keep up with them. And then when I was in 8th grade, my parents got approached. We couldn't call them agents at the time, so by a family advisor. And he said, hey, your son has serious potential. I would start looking into maybe some prep schools and things like that. And he definitely has a shot to play collegiate hockey and then potentially thereafter. So fast forward, I ended up going to Pingree. Played 4 years of hockey there. And my junior year that summer, it was actually a couple days before July 4th, I get a letter in the mail. On the top of the envelope is Yale University. Open it. Thomas Smith, you've been identified by our hockey program as a Division I player.
Wow.
And that was really the start to, wow, I'm living my dream. Because growing up, everything was hockey. I played multiple sports, but it was, for me, hockey was a gateway to do better in all facets of life. I was a good student, but I wasn't a great student, so it helped me get into Pingree. There's no way I would have been able to just randomly apply to Yale, but hockey put me above the Ivy mean, and then University of Vermont came in, Holy Cross, Sacred Heart. So by the time I graduated, it was like, wow, this is actually attainable. So signed a junior A hockey contract, like many players do, to gain a year, potentially two of maturity and things like that. And then you mentioned the day, it was August 2nd, 2008. Skating in a tournament, actually not too far from here, in Hockey Night in Boston. And I was going down on an opposing player, and my goalie came out to poke check the puck, and the three of us met. And that's the last thing I remember. And I woke up in the hospital several hours later, and my introduction to paralysis was my mother's hand was on my hand, but I couldn't squeeze her hand. And so I wake up, have that moment, doctor comes in and says, hey, I need to talk to you about paralysis. You're paralyzed from your neck down.
Wow.
And that was obviously devastating, and you're like, what do I do? I was 19 years old at the time. I was going to say, you're
like 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah. I'm a July baby, so when I graduated from high school, I turned 19 that summer. So I just turned 19, and you're like, okay, well, I'm playing junior hockey. I have 4 letters of interest from top schools to play Division I hockey, full scholarship, all this stuff, and now I'm in a hospital bed and I can't move. What do I do? So to say the next couple of weeks were tough would be an understatement, but I went from the hospital that I was at in Boston to Spalding Rehab and really didn't make much progress. My injuries were at the cervical level of my neck, so high up, and I remember about 6 weeks after my accident in September, Mom, Dad, and I go to, at the time, some of the most well-respected doctors in the world in Boston, sit in their office, and they come in with a pamphlet, and they said, Tom, unfortunately, your injury is really bad. The reality for you is going to be life in a wheelchair. And at that point, I was walking with assisted devices, like I could stand up with a walker, I would use a wheelchair and things like that, but as the swelling hits your nervous system and injuries get worse and you don't make progress in the first few months, at that time in 2008, your body starts to deteriorate, and then you can have a life of paralysis and a life in a wheelchair when you had the injury like I had. So my parents and I said, no way. We're only 6 weeks in, and we want to try to exhaust all resources. You're not going to dictate my future. It was my mindset. So we left the office and never went back.
Yeah.
And we started going on a mad dash to find a place that would provide hope, but not false hope, right? Real hope. We wanted tangible results, and we found the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis, which is the late Nick Bonacani's facility when his son Mark broke his neck, and the world's most comprehensive research center for spinal cord injury. So I go down there, first meeting with Dr. Green, who's the co-founder. He says, Tom, your injury is bad, and it's high, but if I don't get you back on skates, I didn't do my job. I'm like, wait,
wow.
I get a pamphlet in Boston with contractors for elevators, stair lifts, modifications to home, going to be living with mom and dad forever. Now I'm in Miami, and this doctor said if he doesn't get me back on skates, he didn't do his job. So fast forward 3 months, in December, I was walking. Not perfect. I couldn't walk backwards. My gait pattern was a bit scattered, but I was up and walking without assistance. And so I tell people, it was really the best Christmas present anyone could ever gotten. So I made the agreement that to the doctors, go home for Christmas, but come right back down. Fly back to Massachusetts, spend Christmas with my family, go back down. And the next 3 months, it was 5 days a week. Physical therapy, 3 to 4 hours a day at the Miami Project. My brother was going to school at Florida Atlantic at the time, so I was staying with him in Boca, so we'd commute an hour and 20 minutes each day. In his complex, there was a pool, so I'd do aquatic therapy for an hour or two, and then there was a Gold's Gym about 5 blocks away, and I would force myself to walk from the complex to Gold's Gym. It didn't matter if it took me 20 minutes, an hour. I wasn't walking perfect, but I was going to do that. And I said, look, I'm going to apply everything that I knew into hockey into this injury, and that's how I'm going to approach this. And in May of 2009, Mom and Dad flew down to Florida. We had a meeting with Dr. Green, as I mentioned, the co-founder, as well as 3 other doctors, the attorneys from the hospital. Tom, you're no more than susceptible than the average person to get hurt again. If you want to go back to hockey, we, as the number one facility for research for spinal cord injury, are saying you can go. And that was the agreement I made with my parents. If we could get sign off from everyone and I was no more susceptible than the average person, I wanted to go back. I wanted to live my dream. So I got cleared to play less than a year after my accident. It was July of 2009. Started skating with the team that I originally signed with, the Boston Junior Bulldogs. I had a fantastic August, and then Labor Day, as a lot of leagues do, things pick up. I had the best tournament of my life. And when they, the week before Labor Day, we do all the testing and whatnot, and then they factor you in with 18 to 21-year-olds for USA Hockey. I was in the top 2 percentile in terms of strength, speed, and conditioning. I was in the best shape of my life.
Testament to your
it was unbelievable.
Your fortitude, man.
Yeah, but again, it was my identity. It was who I was. I was a hockey player, and good student, not a great student, but hockey was a gateway for me to do better in all facets of life. So when I had that opportunity, I said, look, there would have been no greater gift. I grew up in a very middle-class family to say, Mom and Dad, here's our $250,000 check. I have college paid for, basically, right? That's the scholarship. Whatever money you save, go buy a vacation home, go on a vacation, whatever. But I got college paid for, and that was my goal.
You wanted it, you went after it, and you didn't take no for an answer when you had some of the best doctors in the world telling you, this is the outcome. So that's a testament to you and your will.
Yeah, you went out and found it, right? I mean, so many times people go to doctors for help, right, and they don't have the answers. Mm-hmm. But you went and you found it. Yeah,
we didn't find it on the first, second, third, fourth time, but after several tries, we found the right facility. So I think there's a lesson in that, right? Like if someone whether someone tells you you can or you can't, you're right. And I'm not saying exhaust all resources till you hear what you want, but we were going to exhaust all medical resources at top facilities in the world until we accepted, the outcome.
Yeah.
Well, I like when you said that when you're talking about when you're going through and like you're looking for answers, but it didn't necessarily have to be the answer that I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But that something was going to happen if it was meant to happen, and that. So you were pretty honest with yourself.
Yeah, and again, it was trying to put myself in the best position for success, and we said we're going to go to the number one research hospital and rehab hospital in the world, the Miami Project.
Yeah. So can you talk to the listeners? Like, I'm really curious about what the protocol was that you went through to rehab yourself.
It was aggressive physical therapy. So when I got hurt in 2008, it was an election year. And it was the first time both sides of the aisle agreed that a lot of the stem cell work that was out of this country should be practiced in this country. It was kind of when Big Pharma was getting booted out of politics in terms of funding campaigns. And so 2008, a lot of the experimental research that was overseas was coming back into the country. But that in conjunction with a lot of the therapies that they were doing overseas that were running side by side with the research. So I participated in one of the first studies that the Christopher and Dana Reeves Foundation were doing
Cool,
And that's
yeah.
so what that is. It's one of the Locomat machines. The therapist gets on each leg. It's weight bearing, so I can support 20% of my body, 80%. But they're actually walking you, trying to retrain the mind and the body and get those nerves activated, so you can start walking again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Very
I was
cool.
one of the first success stories in 2008
That's so cool, man.
to have that happen.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
I love the fact that your parents and you all, you wanted to get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was this compelling reason why was to get back on skates, you
Yeah.
know. And we talk about compelling reason whys a lot. And actually, Dennis and I are finishing up a book that we have a whole section on a compelling reason why, you know.
Yeah.
So that is just awesome, man. I mean, I think that's something people can take away from that. Just you need to have a very strong why.
Yeah.
Right, and you just said it. You wanted to be able to get college paid for your parents, and that's amazing.
That was a big piece of my why, and then I had a couple months later another why, and that was a turning point in my life. But I think you do need to have your why. You do need to have your purpose. And up until the fall of 2009, my why was hockey.
Yeah. So now you're at this tournament, right?
Yep, Labor Day,
And you had a great tournament, and you get your skating legs back, and you're in the top 2%.
Yeah.
Right. And what happened next?
Yeah, so to go through Labor Day, top 2%, several weeks in September go by, and what was really cool was school started calling again. So I was like, all right, I have a good chance of having this happen. And October 1st, 2009 came. I was skating in a practice and doing something that I've done 10,000 times, which is I was skating around the net. And unfortunately, my skates got entangled with my teammates, and he went into the boards feet first, and I went to the boards head first, and as soon as I hit the boards, I knew I was paralyzed.
Oh, my God.
Unlike my first accident, where I had a very, very, very severe concussion and don't remember much for several hours and days after, I remember the entire thing. I can tell you what coach came over when I hit the boards to ask me if I was okay. I remember hearing the helicopter land in the parking lot. We were in Salem, New Hampshire. I remember what the EMTs in the helicopter were wearing. They were in blue jumpsuits, 2 females and a male. And I remember thinking to myself, and it was raining out that day, so when they wheeled me out of the rink into the helicopter, getting pelted with rain, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, someone screwed up. I shouldn't have gone back to hockey. And then thinking to myself, you talk about that why, I was thinking to myself, why me? So it was a 23-minute helicopter ride from Salem, New Hampshire to Boston. Land at Boston Medical Center. They put me in the MRI machine. About 45 minutes later, they pulled me out and said, Tom, we can't find the injury. I was like, what do you mean you can't find the injury? Well, they started in my cervical area, thinking naturally, okay, I re-injured my first accident.
Basically boarded, right? I mean, without being pushed into the boards per se, right? But
Yeah. I mean, so you go back to the first injury, right? Cervical area. So it's like I go into the boards. I board accident the first time. It's got to be something related, and it wasn't. So I start moving down my back and found out that I had injured a thoracic vertebra in my back. So for those listening, cervical at the top, thoracic vertebra, the vertebra that I injured was right in between my shoulder blades. Doctor comes in with my parents. Everyone's obviously emotional and says, Tom, you had a better chance of winning the lottery 5 times in a row than having 2 separate accidents totally unrelated. If I was you, I would have went back to hockey. If I was the doctors in Miami, and I didn't go down to Miami with you, if I was those doctors, I would have signed off on you. You had absolutely nothing to worry about. There were no abnormalities in my thoracic vertebra or my cervical. It was a freak accident.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
Did you have those moments afterwards where you really questioned going back?
Mm-hmm. For the first week, it was why me, why me, why me? And I really wasn't a nice person that first week to family, friends, my doctors, nurses. And I remember 7 or 8 days after, my doctor came in, who's just a wonderful man. And we have a good relationship now, but he said to me, Tom, he's like, we got to pick it up in terms of like being nice to the occupational therapists that are coming in. The PTs are trying to get my legs going while I'm laying on my back in my bed, and basically I'm telling everyone to F off. And I'm saying, you don't know what I'm going through. And I said, Doc, what if I took away your medical license and you can no longer practice medicine again? That's what hockey was to me. And he said, Tom, I'm done. He goes, I'm not coming back in here until you want me to come back in. So I'm so pissed off. About 45 minutes later, visiting hours ended, and I transferred from my wheelchair, transfer into my bed, laying in my bed, and look out in the hallway, and I see a little boy, and he's going by in a wheelchair, and he's controlling it by his tongue. And I had seen stuff like that when I was in Miami, but obviously I'm very susceptible emotionally. I'm like, what is going on here? How is this 7 or 8-year-old, 9-year-old paralyzed? And I don't know what I was going to say if I caught up to this child, but I transferred from my hospital bed to my wheelchair. I go out in the hallway, round the corner, and I see his father picking up his arms to hug his mother. And I went back in my room and I lost it. I cried like a baby for almost 2 hours, and I said, Thomas Smith, you are so selfish. Why you? Why not you? It was your choice to go back to hockey. It was your choice to try to live your dream. It was your choice to try to obtain a collegiate scholarship. Why not you? And when I started to look at the why me versus why not me, it changed my whole perspective in life and really how I approach life today, but how I approach life since October of 2009. And that night I did 6 things that I still live by today. Instead of using the F word that we love to use in Boston, I said, look, we're going to come up with 3 new F words, and my F words are faith, family, and friends. And faith in terms of, I'm not, in terms of the religious standpoint, I know my family's religious, but for me, it's faith in each other, faith in humanity, faith in that we're going to put our best foot forward every single day and trying to achieve success, whatever success may be. Friends, my mom used to always say, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And so I was going to surround myself with friends that really supported me. And family, you can't choose your family, but man, you can put people around you that are family. And I was just very blessed that my family, parents, sibling, cousins, aunts, uncles, they were just, they are the most wonderful people. And they really supported me. And then my other 3 things that I did were what I call my 3 Ds. And I said, don't whine, don't complain, and don't quit. Because those are 3 things I was doing, was whining, complaining, and quitting when I was in the hospital. And I put the F's, my new F words in my left shoe, the D's in my right shoe. And I wore those shoes with those pieces of paper for over a year for physical therapy.
20 years old. I assume you're 20 years old at the second injury.
Yep.
And you were, first of all, hockey's out the window.
Out the window.
And the scholarship, you had every reason to throw in the towel.
Mm-hmm.
But you made a quick pivot within a week. And that says a lot about you and your direction. And at times in life where you can give up and you stop fighting, but you changed the whole trajectory of your life and you move forward. That is phenomenal.
With that paradigm shift right there, everything changed. It's amazing.
Dennis and Bob, I think about that moment, right? And it changed my life forever. The why me to why not you. New F words, 3 Ds. But someone who changed my life profoundly was someone outside my family, was my best friend, Tucker Mullen. So Tucker came in. He was at St. Anselm's at the time. So he travels down from Manchester, New Hampshire right after my accident. He was one of the first people outside of my immediate family in the hospital. And then the following week, after this incident happened, he could still say I wasn't doing well. And he said, man, we got to find purpose. And as I was going, so at Boston Medical Center being the #1 trauma hospital, obviously not in the best of areas in Boston, see a lot of stabbing, shootings, just really rough injuries, right? So I was seeing the folks that were coming in and a couple of my roommates, and that I had lines out the door. Folks from the NHL, friends, family, teammates, kids I went to high school with, everyone's coming to support me. And I'm like, wow, this is actually, for a horrible situation, pretty good. Like, I have a really good team behind me, but I'm in the minority. And he said, we got to find a purpose for you. And that was the birth of the Thomas E. Smith Foundation. We co-founded the foundation from my hospital bed. And I tell people, I was 20 years old then. I lived the first 20 years of my life with a passion, and I'm 35 now. I've lived the last 15 with a purpose. And I know we'll get into that purpose, but it was those 2 weeks in the hospital were probably the most transformational in my entire life thus far.
Yeah, and that was an internal transformation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had every reason to be in your feelings.
Yep.
I mean, no doubt. But in 20 years old, we're not fully emotionally developed.
Sure.
You haven't experienced, but you experienced a lot at an early age, and to pivot like that and to do what you're doing right now, as we're going to explore in a few minutes, is it is about purpose. It's about finding those whys, and wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
So now you got injury number 2. It's a thoracic injury.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have surgery? Like, what was that? what was the process to get yourself out of the hospital at this point?
Yep. So I spent over 40 days in the hospital at Boston Medical Center. Luckily, no surgery. I basically broke the side of a vertebra, T3, chipped it right off, and I was very lucky that I was an athlete because nothing collapsed. So I had an incomplete injury. Spinal cord was still intact, but I'm paralyzed from my waist down completely. Can't move my legs at all, and it was looking like life in a wheelchair for me. I actually had to move into my aunt and uncle's, because my parents' home wasn't handicap accessible, and at the time that wasn't an option. When I got out of the hospital, it wasn't going to be in 40 days. So to put a ramp in the garage, I moved into her downstairs, her living room, because there was a bathroom there. So a lot of moving parts, but I started my outpatient physical therapy at Boston Medical Center, and a couple months later, at the beginning of December, I started getting movement in one of my big toes, and I was like, all right, well, this is going to be a marathon, maybe not a sprint like last time, but there was hope, and no good thing ever dies with hope. So I approached the new year in 2010 that I was going to fight like hell and really literally put my best foot forward to walk again.
Amazing. And then, so you went through that whole rehab here in Boston?
Yep. So second rehab was in Boston, and then it was actually my parents would bring me in every week and every day, and my dad would drive me on Mondays. And Monday, January 11th, 2010, is a day that I'll never forget, and one of the worst days of my life, because Dad and I were stopped at a red light at Bell Circle in Revere, and we got slammed into by a distracted driver who was going what they think about 40 miles an hour. And my head hit the windshield, his head hit the windshield. I froze, literally, my body for about 10 seconds and tried to move my big toe that I started moving several weeks before, and I couldn't. And I knew that I had gone backwards and all progress was lost. I get rushed to the hospital. He gets rushed to the hospital. I was really upset because I didn't see him for about 7 hours. Ended up that my father broke several vertebrae in his back in the lumbar section. I had re-injured T3, and now we're both in the fight of our life. Dad has since had to retire. He's on disability with the state. He's not in a wheelchair, but he doesn't walk well. He's had 4 or 5 surgeries, and it just, that day changed both of our lives forever. And I was back to square one.
Wow.
Yeah, I had 3 separate paralyzing accidents and injuries in less than 18 months.
Wow.
And when you're making, to clarify for the listener, when you're making progress and paralysis, it's slow progress.
Yep.
And to move backwards, that's quite a setback.
Yeah, I mean the next couple months weren't good. Tucker and my family, they were trying to position me towards purpose, but there were some very, very, very dark times, dark days. Wasn't the best version of myself, because it's hard to process. Like, you sit there and you're like, I'm a good person. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? And these things are going through your mind. It's
hard to listen to, man.
Yeah. Well, and then you look around, you're like, wow, no, I don't have it as bad as some others. So it's just that I tell people, paralysis, you see the physicality of the injury, but I would argue all day, every day, paralysis is 50% physical and 50% mental. And it's not the mental, I think I'm going to walk and tell my body to walk and I'm going to walk in. No, it's the mental toll that this injury takes on you, your family, and your entire world around you. And it's devastating. But it's something that when the injury happens, you got to deal with.
Yeah. How do you wrap your head around that? Like, how does somebody, and it may not even be, a paralysis type injury. Maybe it's something else. Maybe they're just in a really, it could be anybody in a really dark place. Like, how do you wrap yourself around saying, hey, I'm going to take one more step forward?
For me, it was having to pivot back to that purpose and really believe in the foundation of what I was trying to build my life on, which was surround myself with having that faith, family, and friends. Approach every day with don't whine, don't complain, don't quit. But my turning point was in May of 2010 when the Thomas E. Smith Foundation, that concept that Tucker and I came up with in the hospital, we became a licensed Massachusetts nonprofit. And then we had our first golf tournament in July, and it was just... the support was tremendous. Folks that couldn't golf because it was sold out, dinner was overflowing with people. And I really saw that, look, I didn't make it to play professionally. I had a chance, Do I sit here and tell you I'd be first line on the Bruins today? No. But did I have a damn good chance of playing at some level professionally? I did. So I sat there and I said, look, I'm going to try to utilize this platform. The Boston Bruins stepped up right from the beginning. Bob Sweeney has just been so fantastic with everything that we've done from my accident all the way, several accidents all the way through today. And I said, well, let's try to do something with this foundation. But I don't just want it to be a normal foundation. I told Tucker this. I said, I want to be a philanthropic entrepreneurial foundation where we're innovators, we're doing things that no one else is doing, and trying to move the paradigm of healthcare for individuals with paralysis. So that really, for me, believing that really came into effect after the golf tournament, that we had a platform.
Yeah, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal, like they talk about, right?
Yeah. Saying it now, it sounds so crazy because I said it exactly that way in 2010. It's like, Tom, that's a big goal.
Yeah, man.
Let's not bite off more than we can chew.
I guess if your goal's not scary enough, it's probably not going to be compelling enough, you know.
But then you have an idea, a purpose, which is amazing.
Yep.
But like, is anybody going to buy into this?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the floodgates open, the golf tournament, all the support, and then your dreams start to come to reality.
Yeah. So I was starting this foundation, but what's interesting, right? Because I'm battling my own injury and trying to fight back from paralysis. So first year was tough. Slow progress, minimal progress, but in 2011, I said to myself, I want to try to do something that can reduce the risk of this injury in hockey. So I got inspired by what NASCAR did when Dale Earnhardt Sr. died at the Daytona 500 in 2001, which was they added springboard and foam behind the concrete and various other technologies. But that was the impetus of the modification. So when a driver hits, he or she absorbs less vibration, thus reducing the risk of head or neck injury. And then they did the harnesses and things like that. But that was their first stab at, okay, we see a problem, we have to make things safer, but not affect the speed, intensity, heritage of racing. So I said to myself, well, can we do something with the boards in hockey? So I worked for several months, and I'm trying to modify the boards. I had several different prototypes and things like that, and I was using boat foam as kind of my genesis to making things safe. Because think about it, when you're on a boat, you're hitting the waves, the boat's absorbing so much shock, but especially the newer boats, you don't really feel it. So I'm like, all right, well, if a player hits the boards and, going fast and waves are, boats are obviously going 60, 70, 50 miles an hour, however fast, they're hitting the water. Can we, at a player skating 15, 20 miles an hour, reduce that force? Well, after about 30 different prototypes, I ended up getting in touch with a doctor, the late Dr. Alan Asher, who was out of Tufts University. And he said to me, Tom, it's not the initial contact that breaks the neck. It's the body mass and it's the follow through. Yeah. And that's why we don't see paralysis unless it's a car accident in youngsters, because their body mass isn't heavy enough to break the neck. Like, you don't see a lot of paralyzing hockey accidents in 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Not going fast enough, body's not big enough. So I took a step back and I was like, all right, well, what can we do? So I'm watching a Red Sox game the next summer of 2012, and outfielder goes back for a fly ball, running towards the green monster, and he never looked at the green monster as he was tracking. He was looking for the warning track. Put his arm out as soon as he saw it, and he slowed down. I said, oh my God, a warning track. Why, out of all the sports, hockey's the fastest. The object that we're playing with is on the ground, so inherently we're going to look down. Why is there no warning track before you hit the boards?
Yeah, right.
And that was the impetus to me furthering my purpose. And then several months later, I tagged it as the lookup line, which is ice hockey's first warning track, and we implemented that in 2013 in our first hockey rink, which really was the first structural change, if you will, of any marking in decades that was very obviously visible, which we wanted it to be, and it exploded our foundation.
It's fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about that. Have you how far have we taken this now?
Yeah. So it was really cool. So I went to my old high school, Pingree, sat down with my former hockey coach, Buddy Taft, and the headmaster at the time.
I spent a lot of time in that rink, by the way, with my stepson. He played up there quite a bit.
It's a cold rink.
Yeah, it's very
cold,
very,
but a beautiful facility.
Very cold, yeah.
Great facility. So hockey players, we love it because the ice is so hard.
Yeah.
My parents used to just bundle up and they're like, Tom, we're coming because of you, but this is so cold.
Yeah.
So I sat down with my former hockey coach and headmaster and said, guys, this is what I want to do. And they said, all right, what's the science behind it? And I said, look, continuous visual cueing is the number one way to create behavioral instincts in sports. You look at baseball, right? You have your different markings. You get the bases, what you're running to, warning track. Football is obviously the hash marks. There's the perimeter line. And then I said, spatially speaking, the NFL in 1982 moved the goalpost from the goal line to the end of the end zone and then inserted that perimeter box that's about 5 yards back from the perimeter line. So players, coaches, and media stand behind that. And I'm like, why do they do that? So when players run out of bounds, they have real estate and can look down and say, wow, that's the perimeter line, to pick their head up and slow down. Same as baseball. And basketball, they started moving in the late 70s the post of the hoop back, and then the rim went over the perimeter line. So when players go up for a dunk, they have time, if they go out of bounds, to brace themselves for contact. And you look at where the fans sit, they're several feet back from the perimeter line. So I got thinking, all right, so baseball, basketball, football, they've all made adjustments. I'm in the pool doing aquatic therapy, and I look down and I see the black line in each lane, and that line stops several feet before the end wall.
Yeah.
So when you don't see that, you pick your head up. So I said, what's the science behind this? And the science, so Dr. Asher and I worked on it, and Doc founded the Heads Up Don't Duck program in the mid-90s for hockey players. He said, Tom, if you hit the top of your head, that's what causes the actual compression in the neck. If you hit your face, as brutal as that sounds, we have flexion in our neck and our spinal cord. So we're able to absorb the shock a lot more. That's why you want to pick your head up as opposed to down in all sports before you make contact with a solid object. Think about like when you're going in for a tackle in football. They always say, pick your head up, rise up. So I'm like, this is crazy. Hockey, fastest sport of them all. Object is on the ice, no warning track. So Pingree agreed to put the lookup line down in the fall of 2013. And as the school started skating on it, it exploded. Phillips Exeter and Phillips Andover immediately contacted Pingree. So you have two of arguably the most prestigious high schools in the country saying, we want to do this. And before we knew it, we had over 60% of the New England prep schools putting it down. Then local programs and local rinks in New England, outside New England, were just doing it. Because parents were like, wait, this doesn't affect the speed, intensity, heritage. Add any more rules. They have the science behind it. Why isn't my rink doing that? I want to protect my kid. And the cost of it for the paint, the labor, and everything, and you put it down when you're redoing your ice, which typically rinks do every year, every other year, is less than $500. So we actually said, we'll give you the money to do it if you send us the receipts from the foundation.
Phenomenal.
And Mass Hockey came on board and was doing the same thing. So people had no excuse not to do it. And then you fast forward to, I had a meeting with then Marty Walsh, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh. He said, Tom, no brainer. So he mandated it in all the DCR Boston city-owned rinks. A couple months later, sit down with Governor Baker. Governor Baker mandated it in all the 49 state-owned rinks. And when those two, from a policy standpoint, really got on board, that transferred me up to New Hampshire, where I sat down with Governor Sununu. And he fully got behind it. And we had the governor of Minnesota, Michigan, all these different politicians contacting us. And the lookup line today has been installed in hundreds of rinks across the country. The Nashville Predators put it in their practice facility. St. Anselm's was the first college to install it during the season at the collegiate level. And, we've had millions of players skate on it, and everyone has said it does not affect the speed, intensity, heritage of the game. All we're doing is when you see that orange line, pick your head up, and if someone's coming in to hit you, either make sure you're abutting the boards and right up against it so you don't get airborne, or brace yourself as best as possible. And then if you're an opposing player going in and you see the back of someone's numbers, don't hit them from behind. And if you're going to hit them, just hit them clean. Right? I'm a huge proponent of the physicality of hockey, but there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things, and the lookup line is just a reminder of what's right and wrong.
So when you go in an arena, you must take a little look down sometimes.
I do.
Like, yeah, that must be such a good feeling to see that, this idea, and you're right, hockey, because my sons played at the younger levels, and then, you go to a Holy Cross game,
Yep.
and you see the speed and how quick you come up on those boards. It's a lot faster than running onto the warning track. You're at lightning speed, and you have made change, and you've made something positive come out of your purpose, which is it's just a phenomenal story.
Well, thank you. It really hit me. So when we put it down at Pingree, and then the prep school started doing it in 2014, I get a call from the lead sports editor at the New York Times. And he says to me, hey, we want to come to Boston, do some pictures at your house and do an interview. Well, I didn't know it was just going to be a regular article. I was on the front page of the New York Times that spring.
That's great.
That really started gaining traction because that brought in USA Today, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, Boston Globe had done articles about it, Boston Herald. The news stations were covering it. So it was really kind of like, all right, I'm fighting my own battle here, but I still to this day, 16 years after my first accident, can't tell you why my accident had happened, other than that it made me found kind of a more profound purpose rather than putting a puck in the back of the net, which I'd kill to do to this day, making more of an impact on more people and trying to do something greater with my life.
Could you ever imagined having that type of impact and having that reach in a sport that you love so much that you're an agent of change for the positive?
No, it was look, when I thought of this idea, I took a piece of paper and with crayons, literally, drew a hockey rink, and I first set it up like a stoplight. So the lookup line, it's 40 inches in length, and now, you see some of the rinks with the shorter version, but the original idea was 40 inches in length, so I did 12 inches yellow, and then the remaining 28 in red, because I'm like, all right, if a player sees yellow, it means you're getting close, red, stop. But it's like you're going so fast, and then when the ice got chopped up, you couldn't really see the yellow, so it didn't really matter. But that's how it started. And now to have rinks across the country, Canada, it's been installed in European hockey rinks. Like
that's amazing.
It was good. It's good now, but it was really good then because it again validated my purpose and led to bigger and better things with the overall success of the Thomas E. Smith Foundation.
Yeah. So when's the NHL going to put that in?
Well,
right?
The good news is that our friend and former Boston Mayor Marty Walsh is now the president of the Players
I
Association.
was going to say that. That's a great ally.
So we may be giving Mr. Walsh a call soon. But no, Marty's been great. He actually, when he was working for in D.C. for the Biden administration, he was helping us with several things down there, and then he left, and we were texting congratulations on the NHL gig. And he's just... Look, I'm such a non-political person, and I really like Marty because common sense prevails with him, and he really seeing him and Governor Baker work together when they were like, all right, how can we really blow the lookup line out of the water? There was no politics involved, and he's like, Tom, I know you're here to help people, like throw stuff out the politics out the window. So having him as the president of the Players Association is just fantastic, and we will be scheduling a meeting with him over the next, it might be by the end of this year, but definitely next year.
Amazing.
So
how cool would that be?
Yeah, there's potential. And no one, so Lookup Line was founded in 2012, installed in 2013. 11 years later, still to this day, no one can tell us why not every rink should have a lookup line.
You just sold me on it. I mean, seriously.
I mean, you look at I love sports. You look at the evolution of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Football, they're playing in the leather helmets back in the day with very little equipment. Yeah. And now in hockey, the size of the equipment for the goalies and everything. You're talking safety.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
It's an investment in your money makers, right? The players.
For sure.
And it affects nothing. And my whole thing is that, hockey, one of the great things about the sport is the heritage of it, right? And they try to protect that. But it's a very reactive sport when you look at it. Like it took for a girl to unfortunately die by getting hit by a puck that went over the glass for them to say, oh, maybe we should put netting behind the glass where the goalie is. It's like, no kidding. These pucks are going out 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, sometimes faster. And my whole thing is let's be a bit more preventative. And if we can do so in a simple way, why not?
Yeah. Unbelievable. I absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
So you kind of alluded to other things that happened after the New York Times and all of that. So let's talk a little bit more about the Thomas E. Smith Foundation and what you guys have in store and what's going on with you guys right now. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done, with your running career.
Yeah, so just for context, so I spent almost 3 years in a wheelchair. So when the lookup line was going down, I last used my wheelchair around Christmas time in 2012. Then I progressed to a walker. Now I walk with loft strength crutches. So those are the forearm crutches that I'm sure the listeners have seen many people walk with. But my paralysis today is, in my right leg. So after we did that, I said, all right, we have our preventative and the reduction of risk approach to trying to make this game of hockey safer. How can we be reactive and really gain that national and international attention again? And there were two things that doctors said I'd never be able to do. First one was ride a bike. I loved riding when I played. That was my main mechanism of training. I wasn't a big runner. Would run a couple miles, but biking, I would bike 10, 20, 50 miles and just love it, especially around in the fall, this time of year. So I said, you know what? I want to get back on a bike again. And when I tell you from the time I started riding a bike, which was late 2013 through 2014, that it was a horror show. Like, you have someone who can't feel their right leg. So now we got to figure out, okay, how can we lock the right leg in, but I don't have feeling in my hips. So now we got to figure out the proprioceptor issue. So my uncle and I, and with training 5 days a week, 6 days a week, trying to relearn how to ride a bike, modified a specialized road bike. So I eventually started riding a bike at the end of 2014. And what we did was we made it a little heavier. So think of it like a bobsled. So once you get going, it's a little easier to keep upright, and it goes faster. And then I was using visual cueing similar to the lookup line. I had a mirror in the front, and that's what I was aligning the spokes that I couldn't feel below my hips and in the seat. I was aligning that with the front tire. And then my right leg was clipped in, and my left leg I would slip in. So like mountain bikes have the slip-ins, road bikes have the clip-in. Well, they put one on each. So when I would stop at a light, I would take the foot that was slipped in, my left foot out, and then my right leg would stay clipped in. And I called my buddy and I said, Teague, doctor said I'd never be able to ride a bike again. What? I want to ride my bike from Boston to LA. And he goes, Boston to LA? Why that? I said, I don't know. It sounds cool. He goes, let's make the story better. He goes, let's go to Boston to Miami.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And he goes, let's start with a place where you got hurt and ride to the place that cured you. And then we did a little research, and no one that's been paralyzed has ever ridden their bike the Eastern Seaboard or even attempted it. And so I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's a little crazy. But I knew the magnitude of the ride. So I called the Bruins and I said, to Bob, hey, will you ride with me from Boston to Providence? Remember where the Players Parking Lot used to be, where the big buildings are with banners and Big Night Live are now? So we started in the Players Parking Lot before the buildings were there. We had Bob Sweeney, J.C. Monahan was with a news station at the time, Jenny Johnson with Nesson. Everyone came around. There was like 20, 25 of us. And that was the year. So 2014, 2015, we got the 100 inches of snow. So we kept pushing it back. And I'm like, Teague, we just got to go. It was my buddy Teague Egan who did the ride with me. And we left Boston on March 25th, 2015, and rode from Boston to Providence, Providence to Storrs, Connecticut, and then worked our way down. And by having Bob leave with us, we had a night at the Garden with the Celtics and then the Bruins. Announcing the ride, we saw the donations start to come in. So in my head, I'm like, I want to raise $100,000 for research to give back to the Miami Project, sponsor tangible, evidence-based research, and really start creating this engine, this funding engine for the foundation. So as we started going, we did a night with the Islanders in New York. We get to D.C., we do a night with the Capitals. So cool. We started gaining, and we're using and our partnership with these teams as the platform to extend the message. So we start seeing our GoFundMe start going up significantly, tens of thousands of dollars. And then we got to Florida 9 days before we finished. We roll into Jacksonville, then St. Augustine, and we're at $85,000 raised. I'm like, wow. We're going to do this. And so May 1st, 2015, we rolled into Miami with over $100,000 raised for the Miami Project. Became the first person with paralysis to cycle the Eastern Seaboard. Next day, it was actually funny, the next day I'm on the front page of the Miami Herald next to the Pope. And my grandmother sees the article, and she calls me. Grandma was super religious. And she's like, honey, out of my 8 grandchildren, you were the last person I thought I'd see on the front page of a major publication next to the
awesome.
Pope.
That's
So I was like, Graham, this is too good. And then Stan Grossfield from the Boston Globe, who talk about an iconic career with writing and his photography. He followed us the whole way and then flew to Florida. So he did an unbelievable story, and it's just
That's crazy.
that got syndicated 58, 60 times through other publications in the
Fantastic.
U.S. and around the world. So
Yeah.
it worked. We raised money, created the awareness, and then I said, all right, what else can we do? And that led to the next endeavor.
Wow. Which was?
So again, doctors said I'd never be able to do 2 things: ride a bike and run again.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, running's out of the question. But so my senior year of high school, this is actually a funny story. So to graduate from Pingree, we had to do a senior project. And so I'm like, all right, well, what can I do? So it's like November. I'm thinking about get through Christmas, and we have to submit by February. So I'm like, oh boy, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? My trainer at the time's like, hey, Tom, he's like, we have an extra spot in the Boston Marathon if you run for this charity, Good Sports. And David Ortiz was the sponsor at the time for Good Sports. I'm like, great, do I get to meet him? He's like, yeah, you get a bat, a ball, and a hat. And I was like, sick.
That's all you need.
Sign me up at 18 years old. I'm like, I get to meet David Ortiz. This is great. So I signed up for the Boston Marathon. So the week before the marathon, the month before, I get picked to play for Team Massachusetts at the Chicago Showcase, which is one of the biggest high school showcases in the country. So I'm one of 17, 18 players that get picked all across the state to be on the team. Now I sign up for the marathon in February. Find out I'm on the team in March. I look at the schedule. I'm like, oh boy, this is a week before the marathon. So we were seated right in the middle. There was, I think, 35 or 36 states participating at the time. We're right in the middle. We're like 16 or 17th. So I'm doing the math. I'm like, all right, fly out on Monday. We get there Tuesday. We'll probably be out by like Thursday. I'll just go home, take a ice bath, and I'll be fine by Monday. Well, no, we made it to the championship game.
Oh, my.
So we played North Dakota on Sunday at 2 p.m. The marathon, I have to be in Hopkinton at 9 a.m. the next day to run a marathon. I had played double headers. We had 3 games on Friday, and now we're playing one of the best teams in the country and ended up winning, which was great. But we don't get on our flight till 9:30, get back to Boston after midnight. I'm toast. And I look at my legs, and I'm like, they're like abnormally big. You know, when you skate or you run or whatever, and you do it, kind of abuse your body a little bit with double headers and 3-a-days. I'm like, this is not going to go well. So I leave Hopkinton around 10:30 and get to Boston, and there's a picture online where you can just see every cut and vein in my leg, and I finish. Goal was to finish under 5 hours. I did it in 4 hours and 46 minutes. So for me, it was like, great. I get to meet David Ortiz. But when I finished, they took me into the medical tent, and it took them 25 minutes to straighten my leg because there was so much lactic acid in my legs that these poor trainers and doctors were trying, and they could not straighten my leg. I didn't walk right for a week, and I was on the baseball team at Pingree. Coach was like, you're out of third base for at least a week. And but I did it, and so as I was getting back after the bike ride, I said, you know what? I want to try to be the first person that's been paralyzed multiple times to do the Boston Marathon. And though I can't run it, I want to try to do this because doctors said I'd never be able to do anything like this ever again. And so in April of 2018, the process leading up to before the marathon was interesting because I applied with the BAA, who was wonderful, but they said to me, they're like, Tom, we've never had anyone like you who's been paralyzed 3 times, try to do this. Typically our individuals with paralysis, they're in the hand cycle division and wheelchair division. If we can get clearance from a doctor, and my doctor's like, Tom, you know more stuff than the average person get hurt again. If you want to do it, give it a go. So in April of 2018, completed my first Boston Marathon and have done it every single year since, outside of the COVID year that they pushed to the fall. But you could do it virtually. I did the fall one, but did not partake in the virtual one. We've raised over 120,000.
Wow.
No, this year we crossed. Last year was 120. This year we crossed 165,000 for our outpatient rehab partner that we send a lot of the folks that we deal with to. And after that, I was flew me to LA. I was on the show The Doctors, and again, it was bringing back the importance of the eyeballs on paralysis So I was just trying to build momentum, and it was working again.
Wow.
So you've created so much awareness
Yeah.
that has never happened before. And you've also showed that there's no quit, and nobody's going to tell me no when it comes to the dreams that I have.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great work, man.
You remind me of someone who would like you got to make sure, like, if someone says you can't do it, you're going to go do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's undeniable mode, right?
It is undeniable.
We call that undeniable mode.
Yeah, it's like impossible literally says I'm possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my thing. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that's just been my mentality, where obviously, you got to do things in a way that when I was re-upping and looking into the Boston Marathon, I mean, I went to over half a dozen doctors. Is everyone on the same page and things like that? And generally speaking, they're saying, yeah, we might not be the one to sign the piece of paper, but I was like, am I more susceptible to get hurt? The answer is no. Am I going to hurt myself? No, outside of, okay, I might, like many people do, get blisters, things like that. But am I going to hurt my injuries in my back? The answer was no. So, it was, it's been an interesting journey, but I think when I think about it and this purpose, and I think of the last 16 years, right, and really 14 and approaching 15 that we've had the foundation, the Thomas E. Smith Foundation has donated over $1.5 million to hundreds of people and families living with paralysis, and in conjunction with that, hundreds of thousands of dollars to medical research. When I co-founded, the foundation with Tucker, we saw the inadequate access that the majority have to just essential pieces of equipment in healthcare. And before I get into that, I would argue there is no other illness or injury that is like paralysis, because if you survive the injury, you could live decades, but you're trapped. You're trapped in a wheelchair. And a lot of things, once you get out, are not covered by just healthcare and insurance. So it's out of pocket. So the average cost for someone, lifetime, out of pocket is between $2 and $7 million. Every 29 minutes, someone is paralyzed in this country. Never, and up until this year, has it been under 30 minutes. It's every 29 minutes now. Millions of people living with paralysis. So when we saw, and I was like, wow, I am in the minority in terms of NHL is helping me fundraise. I have family. We need to bridge this equity gap so everyone has access to essential equipment. I'm not talking we need a Rolls Royce. I'm talking people should have a right to shower.
Yeah.
Right now, you have to buy a shower chair out of pocket. That's thousands of dollars. If the three of us got hurt, you live in a home, I live in a home, we don't get money for a ramp. We have to pay for that out of pocket. So we're denied access into our home. If I get hurt, and you get hurt, and Bobby, you get hurt, and we're all paralyzed from our neck down, we need Hoyer lifts, which are tens of thousands of dollars, to pick you up out of bed and put you in a wheelchair. That's out of pocket. So I'm thinking to myself, why are these essential pieces of equipment? And we've just been blessed that we've been able to support hundreds of people in getting proper therapy, proper equipment. And I think that's why there's such a fire in my belly to be the catalyst for change. And the Thomas E. Smith Foundation has really become synonymous as the hub for individuals with paralysis, with our care continuum program, with resources from acute phase to when you're transported to inpatient rehab and then transported home, and then life after you get home. Because up until, as far as we're concerned, up until we created this care continuum, there's been no streamlined approach to a medical playbook. Meaning, how am I going to get back safely into the workplace, back to school, choosing where I'm going to go for outpatient rehab, modifications to home, architectural designs. Obviously, if you have a shower and before you're paralyzed, that's not going to work because you need to roll in and it needs to be wider so you can fit the shower. So things like that we've created, and it's just this fire that our team has because it's this forgotten group, right? When I talk to people about this, even at the senior level at major healthcare companies, they oftentimes are legitimately and genuinely surprised. They're like, wow, we thought...
The decision was you wanted to find out if there was a way. And 16 years later, when you hear the impossible, you continued to find the way. There's no doubt that, in life you hope that you can make an impact on, as an educator, on one individual.
Sure.
You're making an impact on millions of individuals around the world, and I'm confident that you're going to find a way to make sure, through legislation, through meeting with people, that this is going to happen, because you have that will to make it happen. And if it takes a week, a month, a year, you're not going to give up until that's done. And we need more people like you in the world that are agents of change. So congrats and props to you. And I personally have learned a lot today. And, this is a great story for people never to give up on themselves. And you can continue to rewrite your story when you have obstacles thrown, not just one obstacle, thrown at you in all different directions. Props.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Thank you.
And I'm just in awe of what you've done with, the cards you were dealt, and you came out in a way like that I couldn't even. If I was in that position, I don't think I could be able to do what you did, man. So I think that's just a really, kudos to you, kudos to the people around you. It takes a village sometimes.
It absolutely does.
I'm compelled to follow along with your story, and I hope our listeners are compelled to follow along too. So how can they follow along? How can they help the Thomas E. Smith Foundation meet their next goals and all that?
No, thank you. You can check us out on our website, thomasesmithfoundation.org. My personal handle is at Tommy E. Smith. Our foundation handle on Instagram is at Thomas E. Smith Foundation, Twitter, TES Foundation, Facebook, Thomas E. Smith Foundation. And, we're being very active and have been for quite some time on our socials, really getting the word out of what we're doing and some of our fundraising efforts. And again, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've invested, you can read about that on our site. The 1.5 million plus that we've donated to date is on there, our Care Continuum program. And if any listeners are individuals that have sustained spinal cord injuries or living with paralysis, go to our site. And if there's something that we can help you with in terms of a grant, do not hesitate to reach out. We just redid our grant form, so everything goes through an automated system, and it gets shot in an email, and I'm one of the people who gets the email, so I can tell you that between our executive director, myself, and our chief advancement officer, one of us is going to take a hard look at it, so do not hesitate to reach out. But yeah, I'd encourage everyone to follow along with us, foundation, my social handles, and if there's anything we can do to help, or if anyone just wants to reach out and learn more, do not hesitate to contact us.
Fantastic. Dennis, I think we got a story to follow. And
unbelievable.
And I think Thomas just set the bar for us too, man.
100%.
In our mission,
And we're all in with you. Keep us informed with what's coming up, and we're there.
Well, thank you guys so much. And again, I can't reiterate enough. I love the concept of the podcast and what you do, the guests that come on, and to the listeners, everyone has a story. And I just hope that mine can just provide perspective and help people, even if it is just that 1% better every day. So I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you both today.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And Dennis, take us home, man.
This is go time. Thank you very much.